What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bama Standard. As you guys can see here, I got one of my main men on, Daniel Petty. Thank you for taking the time to get on here, man, because we got some great stuff to talk about today.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here talking a little SEC football coming up.
No doubt. So in today's video, guys, we're talking about the 3 SEC coaches on the hot seat, and we're adding in an exclusive one that's non-SEC. So make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you guys haven't already. And make sure to leave in the comments who you guys would have on the hot seat, whether it be in the SEC, Big Ten, whatever that may be. Make sure to leave that in the comments. But with all that being said, Petty, we're going to start off with our SEC coaches at the number 3 spot. I'll let you take this one and give me your number 3.
So, and let me make sure I got the parameters of this right before we get going. Is it like under the most pressure to win week 1 or on the hot seat for the season?
It can be either one. You just tell me what you do it for.
Okay, because I did on the hot seat to win in week 1 because I think it would change a little bit if it was a season long hot seats because the games. But man, I might be pulling one out of left field. But my first one's going to be Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State. They're opening up with Southern Mississippi, and the reason I say this one is if you look at the over under win total for Mississippi State out in Vegas, it's 3.5. They've got Arizona State as a non-conference coming to Starkville, Mississippi. If you remember, Arizona State was in the playoffs last year. It is going to be tough sledding if you don't win this out of the gate. Now, look, Southern Miss sitting the Southern Miss, we knew that used to play Alabama every year, and it was kind of a dogfight and just a nasty game. They were low-key one of the worst teams in college football last year, so it should be a game that State should win. But State's going on the road. Southern Mississippi getting a chance to play one of the in-state Mississippi schools. They will be up, Bart. It's the first week. And again, Vegas doesn't really have Mississippi State as a high win total this year. And if this is one they stumbled out of the gate, it would be a struggle for Mississippi State to get to 3 wins. So I don't know if Lebby's necessarily on the hot seat because they've traded out so many coaches at Mississippi State in recent years, but this is a must-win game, I think, for Mississippi State out of the gate, and one that could get kind of nasty down in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
No doubt. And a little nugget, by the way, guys, Charles Huff, who is the coach at Marshall, who just won the conference, by the way, did not get his contract. He's down at Southern Miss and brought a lot of those Marshall players with him that were there. So that game can actually get real interesting really quick depending on the mood there. But me starting out, my number 3, and mine is not based on week 1. It's Brent Venables.
Okay. That's where I would have. I'll be honest. I love it. I want to hear what you got to say because this would have been my overall pick 3.
Brent Venables is 22-17 as a head coach at Oklahoma. He's 0-3 in bowl games. He has yet to win a bowl game. But here's the kicker. A big part of where I rank these guys is based off not just expectations of the fan and the program, but how much money are you making? He's making $8.5 million a year to do what? To go 6-7? You know what I mean? So he went 6-7 his first season in 2022, 2023. He went 10-3. He got the contract extension. He got the big raise. When he got that big raise, what's he do? He goes 6-7, right? So, I mean, I don't know. You look at the recruiting. He's missed on some of the recruits, not on the defensive side, but the offensive side. And here's the thing. People are saying, well, their defense looks great and all that stuff. Well, guess what? That's the standard you should have as Brent Venables as a head coach. So I'm not grading Brent Venables on what the defense looks like. I'm grading Brent Venables on what he looks like as a coach, which is over the offense, defense, special teams. And one of the worst he's at, by the way, time management. My goodness. So I definitely have to put Brent Venables on the hot seat at number 3, but give me your number 2 if you want, unless you want to comment on that real quick.
Yeah, I do want to comment real quick because I think that's a great answer. I don't think Lebby's as much on the hot seat as he is under pressure to win in week 1, where I do think Brent Venables is absolutely one of the top 3 hot seat coaches in the SEC as far as the full season. You see, they brought in John Mateer, the kid from Washington State that a lot of people are high on and expect to translate to the SEC. He brought his offensive coordinator with him, so there's that level of comfort. But you made a great point. You're not being graded on having a great defense, which Oklahoma's had. You're graded on one thing, and that's the scoreboard, wins and losses. And Oklahoma, whether we view them as or not, they view themselves as a blue blood. And if he doesn't start getting the wins, it's much like Alabama, LSU, Georgia. You get axed real quick. So I think that's a great answer. My number 2, I think this one actually works on both levels. It falls in line with hot seat to win week 1, but it also is going to be determinant on the full season. And that's one Hugh Freeze down in Lee County on the Plains. Look, Auburn has gone. I made the the reference last year with Ole Miss, like being at the poker table and pushing all the chips in. Auburn did the same thing. Freeze kept saying last year, all I need is a quarterback. All I need is a quarterback. Well, they go get Jackson Arnold. I know we just talked about Oklahoma, but Arnold was a former 5-star kid. You can kind of give him the break that his top 5 receivers went out while he was at Oklahoma. He didn't, the offensive coordinator it was a bad deal. They fired him mid-season. Now he's got the QB whisperer, Freeze, and Freeze has been claiming this was the missing puzzle piece. Well, here you go, Freeze. You got it. You got Cam Coleman. You got the Eric Singleton, the big burner from Georgia Tech. You got a great receiving core. You got a good linebacking core with Woodward and some guys coming back. I know a guy that's been on our program, Tyler Siskey, who has said openly, so I'm not telling any secrets, that Hugh Freeze really likes this team. He's told Tyler Siskey he really likes this team. And I asked Tyler, I said, is that something Freeze says every year? He said, no, he only does it when he likes it. However, you're opening the season going out to Baylor. Dave Aranda is an underrated coach. Got a heck of a quarterback in Sawyer Robertson, who threw for 3,000 yards and 28 touchdowns last year. This is a Baylor team that's 2-3 years removed from beating Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. Yep. This isn't just an SEC team going out to the beleaguered Big 12 to mop up. Heck, Vegas has it pretty much installed as a pick 'em right now. So look, Auburn doesn't win this game coming out of the gate, and they need to get to 10. Freeze really needs to get to the playoffs. He needs to find a way to beat Georgia or Alabama this year. You lose to Baylor out of the gate, and man, the fire starts cooking down on the plains real quick.
All right, well, my number 2, guess what? Hugh Freeze. Wow, there we go. So we did match on the number 2 here. 11-14, 0-1 in bowl games. That's a big one. That means he's been there 2 years, Petty, but he's only been to 1 bowl game, which means one of those seasons, last season, he didn't win 6 games. He goes 5-7, right? We keep hearing, like you said, I'm the QB whisperer, whatever. He goes out and gets Jackson Arnold. Well, here's the thing. He did go out and get Michigan State's quarterback, Peyton Thorne. He did recruit Deuce Knight, right? What did he do with Peyton Thorne? Well, we saw what happened last year. Deuce Knight, a hell of a talent. But here's the thing about a lot of these coaches. A lot of time, it's a little too late, right? And Hugh Freeze on a very short leash for a multitude of reasons. Once again, I always bring up what contract, $6.5 million per year. The boosters will not give this dude a lot of time. So at the end of the day, my question is, are you healthy enough? Are you willing to put in the work to do the recruiting that everybody says you're not willing to do? And now we're on the second transferred quarterback, Peyton Thorne. Now we're over to Jackson Arnold, who's one of the most inconsistent quarterbacks last year. We're going to see what you're made of at number 2. But with that being said, moving on to number 1, give me your number 1.
Number 1, and I couldn't agree more on Hugh Freeze. And look, Auburn's a place that they have, I don't care what you say, they're a program that, whether they're realistic or not, their expectations are what their expectations are. And if you don't beat Georgia and Alabama at Auburn, you don't keep your job. Well, my number 1 falls under that same category. And while there's a lot of hype building into this team this year, there's a lot of people that think they're a national championship caliber team. But if they don't do it, the fans aren't going to give a crap of what the prognostications were. But Brian Kelly's under the gun at LSU. Your deal at LSU is to win titles. A grass eater won a title at LSU after Nick Saban. A caveman won a title at LSU. It shows that if all you got to have is the right pieces, the right offensive coordinator, right defensive coordinator, and LSU always has the talent. But man, the big thing since Brian Kelly's been at LSU is there's been no defense. They haven't been able to stop anybody. They haven't. Hey, talk about getting out of the gate. They're 0-5 out of the gate in their last 5 years with 2 losses to USC. They've lost to Florida State. They lost to UCLA. Lost to Mississippi State out of the gate 1 year. And now you open up with Clemson on the road, who's got a Heisman hopeful at quarterback in Klubnik. Look, they're the odds, everybody's favorite to win the ACC this year, especially with how weak the ACC, but how good of an offensive core that Dabo's got at Clemson with their wide receivers. And then you talk about they've got possibly one of the best defensive lines in college football. And that's what you're starting out of the gate when you have a history of it being bad. Tell you what, LSU, again, their fans are hearing all this. They're getting pumped up. They're drinking all that moonshine down in the bayou right now, listening to we've got national championship team, and you come out of the gate and get popped by Clemson. That seat gets real hot in Louisiana real damn quick.
No doubt. And I want to point something else out. You say they have had a defense since he's been there. I agree 1,000% with that. Another thing, by the way, they have not had a running game, by the way, in the past like 4 to 5 years. Like ever since Allaire left and went to the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe is where he got drafted. They have not had, in my opinion, any sort of running game, not just the defense. Replaces the defense coordinator. We're going to see how it goes this year. But no, I like that one. So, but with my number one, I have to go Sam Pittman. It's because I propped this dude up for so long. He's 30-31. He is 3-0 in bowl games, but he's making $6 million plus a year. A lot of his salary is based on incentives, bonuses, and stuff like that. Here's the thing: Sam Pittman is not a greenhorn in the SEC, right? He's been there for a little while now. He's never won more than 4 SEC games in a season, by the way. So that's something to note on here. And this is the biggest problem. This is why I think his seat is not hot. It's completely on fire. And for one reason, if you look at Sam Pittman, what's he known for? It's coaching up O-lines. He's an O-line guru. Well, your O-line's been struggling, bro. Right? So like when your O-line is struggling, what you're known for is struggling and nothing else is working around you except the quarterback to hopefully save your season. When you're talking about KJ Green, now you're talking about Taylor Green, right? These guys, if they don't perform at a completely almost Heisman-like level, you lose those games because your defense is not holding almost anything together at this point. I don't know how the depth looks at all on the defensive line when it comes to Arkansas, and I'm not speaking positively here. So it seems like Sam Pittman was brought in for all the right reasons. He looks like a hog, and I mean that in a good thing. I mean, he looks like an Arkansas coach, right? And if I'm an Arkansas fan, I want him as a coach because, you can relate to him in every sort of the way, and I love him as a human being, as a person, and everything. He stands for everything great for Arkansas. But at the end of the day, like you say, you're making a lot of money to win games. You're not making a lot of money to speak well, to relate to people, and look good in front of a camera. Right. So I have Sam Pittman at number one.
And you're probably going to be prophetic by the end of the year. He'll probably be the first one to get axed because, at the end of the day, you're making $6 million not to go to the Liberty Bowl or the Music City Bowl or whatever Arkansas has been eking out. Even if you don't, even if you're making a bowl. And man, it doesn't help that the best coach Arkansas has had in the last 30 years is sitting on your sideline again, running the offense. And he's likable. I think you nailed it. Fits matter. Fits honestly matter in college coaching, and he fits there perfect. But Arkansas is not a program that look, they're not Alabama, and they're not Georgia, they're not LSU, but Arkansas's got a little bit of history about them. They're better than what he's put on the field, and he's definitely not getting the return on the investment, like you said. So I actually think that's a really good pick at number one with Sam Pittman. I don't love the guy. Like you said, he's the guy you want to invite to the barbecue and grab a beer with because he's one of the best humans. He's the players love him, obviously. But at the end of the day, I say it again, this is a scoreboard business.
Yeah, and no doubt. And when I think of Arkansas football, I think of hard-nosed offensive linemen and great running backs like Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, you know what I mean? And just a host of others that have been there. So at the end of the day,
not to throw salt on it, I mean, look at what transfers. We talk about Kalen DeBoer. One of the things that's kind of lighting us up is the fact that nobody's transferring out. As likable as Sam Pittman is, and you talk about offensive linemen, their best offensive lineman transferred to Ole Miss this year. They had their best 2 defensive players went off to Oxford. Their best linebacker last year when they've become a feeding ground to Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. And that's not, look, I know that's not acceptable in Fayetteville.
Rocket Sanders was there at one point, goes to South Carolina and becomes one of the best running backs in the SEC.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you absolutely nailed it when you talk about that. So with that being said, do you have a non-SEC coach you would like to put on the hot seat? Because I definitely do.
I do. I've got one that's definitely on the hot seat and one that I think could get on that might be an honorable mention. And they're from the same state, ironically. But I'm going to go with my first one. And he's going to be on the other sideline of Alabama's first game. And that's one Mike Norvell. This is an interesting one, guys. Look, he's 2 years removed from a quarterback going down, which cost him a run at the playoffs. I mean, they were undefeated. They were if their quarterback doesn't go out, they're in the playoff hunt. Well, he goes out, it doesn't happen. He whines and makes a big deal about it. The next year completely misses on the quarterback evaluation. Cam Ward goes down to your rival at Miami and turns their program around where Cristobal was on the hot seat. And then you just kind of quit hearing about him. Might be some foreshadowing there. But then you take DJ Ukulele. I'm going to say that because I'll never get the real name right, and I don't care now because we'll never hear from him again. But you take that, a kid that's transferred 4 times and couldn't even start at Washington State, and you thought that was your answer. I don't care that you're 2 years removed from almost being in the playoffs. Florida State has those. Look, man, we all grew up in the 90s. We know what Florida State's expectation levels are, and winning 2 games is not it. And if you look at the line right now, Alabama's, they're getting Alabama at home, and, Alabama's supposedly down. Alabama's a 12.5-point favorite in that game. Alabama walks in there and whitewashes Florida State. That seat in Tallahassee's scorching hot this year on Mike Norvell.
No doubt. I love that because I'll be honest with you, I didn't think about it. And the fact that we got them on week 1, we may have to revisit this video. So now, with that being said, there's a dude I have a disdain for. And I'm not putting him on this hot seat because I have a disdain for him. But I'm talking about one dude that needs to be talked about. That's not talked about enough. You, Lincoln Riley, right there. It's not hot. It's not on fire. You have a bonfire that you're sitting on, and what you're sitting on is brush fire, right? So you're sitting on the worst of the worst of the worst. How in the world do you sign a $110 million contract, get a private jet, all this glitz, glamour, great stuff for USC? You're on the West Coast. Your only recruiting prowess over there with you is north of you, which, by the way, has been beating you lately. We're talking about Dan Lanning. So that's it. You have that. You think, okay, you're in the Pac-12 for, part of half the time. Then you go to the Big Ten, obviously, for one season, right? Well, you're 25-14. You're 2-1 in bowl games. 25-14 in the Pac-12 does not cut it. Not for $110 million. I'm sorry. $11.5 million per year. Like I said, the private jet. It goes on and on here, but here's the deal. When Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma, what was he known for? Offense, but can never field a defense. He goes to USC. He gets all this additional money, right, for doing everything. He brings Caleb Williams along with him, all that great stuff. Guess what he still can't do? He still can't field a damn defense to save his life. So what's the point? You know what I mean? It's something's got to give eventually for what this guy's doing. And by the way, he struggles to keep the top talent in California now. They go to Alabama, they go to Georgia, they go to Oregon. So exactly, they go everywhere else except to USC. Now this year, everybody's talking about, well, USC has the number 1 recruiting class. Well, they have 29 damn recruits. They're not all going to sign guys. They're going to lose a lot of those recruits probably. Xavier Griffin, but you get what I'm saying. Like, a lot of that talent is leaving. And trust me, I believe wholeheartedly it's not all going to stay. They're not going to be the number 1 recruiting class at the end of the day. That's what it comes down to. But man, USC fans were so quick to talk that business when he got to USC. And man, did it go quiet really quick. So, I don't know what else to expect out of Lincoln Riley. I think he's a great offensive coordinator, right? I think he's an outstanding offensive coordinator. I think he does an outstanding job. He did one with Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma. He knows how to coach those QBs. And I'll say the same thing for Brent Venables if he stays on his path. Great defensive coordinator, right? Knows how to coach a defense. But you're not showing me nothing as a head coach. Because look, at the end of the day, Bob Stoops handed you a golden platter, right? The only person I think that had it better handed off was Mark Richt, handing a 10-win, almost a 10-win team consistently, by the way, every year with Georgia, to Kirby Smart. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So there's no excuses there to not win games and then to be 25-14. Give me a break.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's ridiculous.
I think that's a great answer. And he obviously, honestly did better when he was at Oklahoma. So yeah, the expectations you're going to get all these resources at USC, which is the only program, one of the only programs in the country that can kind of swing a stick with the Texas schools. And the question is, what is the hot seat for the people in LA? Are they wanting him to go 10-2? Because if you look at the first month of the schedule, he's not going to be on the hot seat. He's got like Missouri State, Georgia Southern, at Purdue. Ooh, Drew Brees isn't walking through the door. Then you get Michigan State at home. But then after the first month, he's got a 4-game stretch that could put him on the hot seat real quick. You got to go to Illinois, where Brett Bielema is one of the media darlings right now. They're a top 15 consensus team preseason. You never know what happens as the season get going. But then they get Michigan the next week. Then they go to Notre Dame. Then they go to Nebraska back to back. Nebraska's got, mini Patrick Mahomes in his second year. a lot of people are expecting them to take a step. That's a 4-game stretch that could define Lincoln Riley and USC this year. And then, of course, they always end with, I think Notre Dame somewhere. No, Notre Dame's the one in the middle of that. They're not at the end of this year. So, yeah, man, that's an interesting stretch for USC. Riley's an offensive guy, but he just hadn't did it. He brought his big gun Caleb Williams and couldn't do it with that. He just great answer. Yeah, I think Riley's again with those resources. You got a USC. They don't have the crazy SEC expectations, but they do have them because they have won. They were the dynasty of the early 2000s. So. Yeah, man, Riley could be there with my guy Norvell at the end of the year, wondering, how to retire to some island. But I do want to give a quick before we end this, and I mentioned it. I think there's an honorable mention, and he's not hot right now because his seat got saved a little bit. But everybody forgets going into last year, Mario Cristobal was a whipping boy for all of his dumb decisions where he threw his team under the bus for this time mismanagement, clock management that was just atrocious. And then he gave this 1980s answer that showed he hadn't evolved in the sport. And everybody's like, this guy ain't going to make it. Well, then you go get Cam Ward, Cam Ward, #1 draft pick, Heisman winner. You watch him in his first game in the swamp, and he looks like he's just everybody's playing, and he's like a duck. I mean, he's just walking in slow motion. So I question. I'm not sure, our boy from Georgia is the answer down there at Miami. Maybe he is. Maybe he gets it. Maybe Beck has a better season after the beleaguered year he had at Georgia, but if Miami stumbles this year and all the money, because here's the thing, Miami's one of the biggest players in the NIL era. Absolutely. And again, all the chips on the table, they're right there at the poker table with it. So I think not right now because of how last season ended, but if the season gets nasty, I think it could get nasty down in Miami as well.
No doubt. So I actually agree with you wholeheartedly on that. To be honest with you, I was putting him on the hot seat last year prior to Cam Ward because I didn't know how Cam Ward was going to pan out. Right. So I definitely have to give you kudos on that one. And I'm going to give my quick honorable mention because we already talked about him, but it was Brian Kelly he has to win week 1. You can't be 0-6. You know what I mean? LSU as a whole, and then Brian Kelly yet to win, his first home opener. And then, like you said, it's against Clemson. And by the way, this is the best LSU team you've had since you've been there. You have an experienced, seasoned Garrett Nussmeier, who, by the way, you should be kissing his feet that he came back. Because you wouldn't be near expectation of winning or going to the playoffs, by the way, without him returning. So, but guess what? I always judge people on trends and what happens year after year, right? I'm a stats guy. I'm an analytical guy. And, well, you've done nothing to improve the run game. And so far, you've tried to improve the defense. But so far, it's been pretty much not. So, either way, that's my honorable mention. Anything else or anything that you want to say before we get off here?
I'm ready for the season. I'm going to say, prove me wrong, prove me right. Let's go. Let's kick off.
100%. Make sure to leave in the comments, guys, what you guys think about all of our picks. Make sure to leave who is on your hot seat, any comments, anything like that you guys want to talk about. Other than that, we'll see you guys next episode. And as always, roll Tide.
Roll Tide.